Let's call this meeting to order. This is the Livingston Parish Council meeting for August 24th, 2017. Could everyone stand, please? I think John had someone for the invocation.
Yeah, he passed it on to me, and I'm going to ask my friend Leighton Ricks to come and pray for us before this meeting.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for the freedom to be able to gather here today. We ask, Lord, that all the decisions we make be good for the people that we come to you for guidance and that we follow. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray for all along the coastline. As we know the tropical storm Margaret is quickly approaching hurricane status. And even though it's going to Texas, Lord, we pray for our good neighbors and friends in Texas, and we pray for all along the coast for safety. We ask, Lord, that your will be done in all that we do. For it's in your name we pray.
Amen. Mr. Avery, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right.
Thank you. And just a reminder for everyone to, if you have your cell phone, please turn it off or at least put it on mute. And if anyone in the public wants to address any items that come up as they come up, just raise your hand. We'll recognize you. Come to the front. We'll hear what you have to say. Item 7, the presentations. Mr. King, did you have?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a scout from Troop 283 who's here at Chad Street who's trying to earn his merit badges in communications and citizenship in the community. And we thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Outstanding. Ms. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ard.
Here.
Mr. Wascom. Mr. Garlinghouse.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Talbert.
Here.
Mr. Lobel. Mr. Averett.
Here.
Mr. Mack.
Here.
Item 8 is the adoption of the minutes from the August 10th, 2017 regular meeting for the council. Any discussion on that? Any discussion from the audience? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Ard. Second by Mr. Averett. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 9, Parish President's Report. Mr. Ricks.
Just a quick little update because of Harvey becoming or possibly and most likely becoming a hurricane, maybe a Category 3 along the coastline in Texas. We are preparing. Mark is in constant dialogue with the Weather Channel, obviously, and all the people he talks to. Sam is making some runs. They're preparing. We're not going to we don't want people to get panicky and all that kind of stuff right now, but we have sent out an alert for them to at least pay attention to the local media and to all the weather stations for any updates. Most likely, we really won't know anything around our area probably till Monday or Tuesday. So just want to make you aware that we are doing initial preparations just in case we do see. We know we're going to see some rainfall. We don't think it's going to be anything like what we experienced in August, but we are going to see some rain.
Please.
So, okay?
That's it.
Thank you, Captain.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 10, Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. My good friend, Mr. Mark Harrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to start off first by saying I love all of you,
I love you, Mark.
even Mr. Talbot.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell.
You're welcome.
Y'all know Mr. Harrell can cut hair?
I
No, I
can.
hope so.
He needs it. Yeah.
We discussed why we're like this, don't we?
That's right. Guys, I've got some great news tonight. I need some guidance on. We have an opportunity to extend our debris cleanup for another 120 days if we so choose. However, there are a lot of stipulations with it. It will be very labor intensive on our side. We must check every home before we pick it up and verify that home has not been sold since it's flooded because it's not eligible. We also have to check every home and make sure they're not in the Restore Louisiana system. They're not eligible. It's a lot of things that we must do. I don't see a lot of debris there. There will be debris out there. We still get a few calls. So it's up to you. It's your pleasure. Whatever you want us to do, I'll move forward with it. But just know it's going to be a tough one. And It's possible we could make a mistake or two and then not get reimbursed for 1 or 2 loads. You know, there's no way you can guarantee all the stipulations. So what would you like for me to do?
You know, your opinion, is this a necessary evil, if you say, you know?
I have no opinion.
Okay.
You tell me what you want me to do, and we will move forward with it the best we can.
So you're up to the task, in other words, but we
If
just
that's
need to
what
tell you we want you to
If
do
that's
it.
what y'all so choose, I will do it.
I believe that it's a tough call, but I know there's people that just now getting around to, you know,
Did it have to be extended for that long? Could we do it for 30 days? Or
They offer an 120-day extension, so if we do it,
it would be up to that?
Look,
it's going to be 120 days.
how time sensitive is this decision?
Yeah, when's the current contract expire?
Well, we've got another year on the contract, but we don't want to pass the time frame that we're allowed to go ahead and get in on the extension. If you want it, I need to turn the extension request in Monday morning.
Still be at 10% match?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I say yeah. I know you probably say no, that's why I said yeah.
well, no. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand. I mean, look, I got probably stuff in my backyard that probably needs to still come to the street. You know what I'm talking about? We just didn't because it kind of got to where that, you know, I don't know.
Is there any way to put a dollar figure on how much we expect?
It's not.
Yeah, he's just a yes or no.
It's not the dollar figure, Shane. It's the money. It's the, look, I mean, Homeland Security's been taxed for a year now. For a year now, everybody that works in that office has been under, you know, let's say a stressful situation. I mean, and people in the parish have been too, don't get me wrong. But technically, we gave everybody an end date and we gave them a last, you know, when you have it to the street by this day and we're gonna pick it up. And we're a year past the flow. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand there's some people, but we're a year. At some point in time, you gotta end it. And I guess my deal is that every call that comes to Mark's office for the next 120 days, they've got to do an evaluation process on the pickup before they can make it. And then you got to send the contractor out there. And obviously the rates are going to be different on a one-dime pickup versus.
They can't. Our contract is our contract, whether they pick up.
So what you got? So you bring 1 or 2 guys back to town to
I'll bring
handle
1
that?
or 2 trucks. The only thing that makes me a little bit hesitant is if I go to any one of your areas and I pick up 5 houses and I leave 15 or I leave 1 because it's not eligible, what is that going to do to you? Because they're going to call. Everybody feels they're eligible, so that's why I'm saying, this is your call. I'll do whatever you
So if we
want.
dog it off right now, we don't have any of this.
Well, I mean, and I mean,
Except for the fact that
He told
Yeah,
them, he told us a few weeks ago that they just got to put it in their dumpster a little bit at a time. and
I understand. I mean, I understand both sides of the deal. I'm just saying, at some point in time, you got to be done with the. I mean, everybody knew we had a limited time that we were going to pick up, and we picked up. I think we've extended this longer than the initial deal was. The initial deal, and we've extended it.
FEMA has been very, very gracious this go around. I've never seen a 1-year time for debris. It just does not exist. It didn't even exist for a year during Katrina. So they've been very gracious, and they've come back and they're allowing 1 more 120-day extension.
And to be honest with you, this is stuff outside of municipalities. Every municipality will have to make their own decision. Now, I understand that I understand certain areas it was harder to demo or harder to start remediation than in other areas. The parish has been it's been very easy in the parish to just call and say, I want a remodel permit. You gut your house, you call for a moisture deal, and then you're good to go. You know, so it's been easy within the parish to get the demolition stuff to the street. You know, it was
And there were
They
other
didn't have
areas,
to wait necessarily.
there were other areas that it was much more difficult to determine whether you need to tear a house down or gut a house or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, you know, now, I understand there might be build-back debris, but I don't know that build-back debris is something that we need to be definitely
We're not supposed to
concerned
mess with
about.
it.
That's not eligible.
I mean, so we're just talking
take that
about
off the
demo debris,
table.
so in theory, if you live within inside the parish, you know what I'm saying, then, and the permit process was through the parish, then it was very easy to make the demo. You know, so,
I think one of the problems that we were having, it wasn't the people picking up debris or anything like that. It was the fact that some people had never settled with their insurance company, so therefore they wasn't able to do anything at the time. And now, a lot of them are beginning to get their monies and all, and they begin to have a lot of debris that they need to get rid of.
Correct, and there's a lot of people that's been delayed because of the Restore Louisiana funding.
Right.
They have to go through so many evaluations. However, they're not eligible. So if the Restore group is going to fund them, we can't pick their debris up. So that's
This
my
would
only
be kind of a
concern.
picking.
Oh, it's going to be, and I'm going to follow the rules.
No, I say no, let's dog it off.
I'm gonna have to follow the rules, guys, and I just want you to be aware of everything so you can make your decision.
Yeah, I think it's long
And
enough.
I'll do it.
Did we give extensive warning that we were gonna dog this off?
Oh,
What we
yeah.
did?
Oh,
we
yeah.
did it,
That we
we did it
did.
at our meeting. I mean, we
Yeah.
talked about it at our meeting.
Several meetings.
On the
It was
front
like
page
the
of the
17th.
Livingston Parish News.
Oh, yeah, it
they
even
were
said on
gonna-
there, storm debris is ending, you know, pickup is over. For Dental Springs and the parish, said it both.
I don't know, you want to call, it requires a vote, right? You,
No, I don't think he,
or,
Well, I mean,
Y'all are authorized.
I just want some guidance, guys. What do y'all want?
what do you want?
If the service is available for the people, and it's not gonna cost us much money, then why don't we just extend it? I'm sorry.
Yep.
I mean, if it can benefit the people, it ain't gonna cost us much, and the opportunity's there. I don't know. It's a hard decision.
It's okay, man. It's all right.
My point is, I'm like, somebody said about the insurance, well, you're getting a lot of people now just getting their insurance settlements. And they're tearing out now. So I say, yeah.
It's available. I'll say extend it.
I hate to tell you, but if you tearing out now.
It's done anyhow.
I don't know if you can get it cleaned up.
May not get
Jeff?
I mean,
I mean, if not, you're gonna have to tear the house down, you're gonna need them to pick that up too, so.
What is going order here?
okay.
Jeff?
I think we should extend it, because if not, we're gonna wind up having trash in our ditches. Somebody gonna be throwing it off the end of the gravel
That
road.
makes sense there, though.
Yeah.
That's four.
They're gonna find somewhere.
Extend
I think the decision's made. I mean,
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Extend it, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I'll send the letter in Monday.
Appreciate it, Mark.
No, maybe you don't need one. Then just, you want one?
Didn't he
Okay,
get-
I need a motion to,
I'll make that motion.
okay,
Can I say what y'all are voting on?
Absolutely.
Okay, y'all are authorizing the director, Mark Harold, to accept the offer from, was it FEMA? It was from FEMA? To extend the debris pickup from the August 2016 flood. But we don't have a beginning date of when, or ending date of when that 120 days will be.
The end date's gonna be from the 12th, to 120 days.
Okay.
Because we cut.
August 12th.
Need a vote. I
Or
just
September
need to know
12th.
what-
Yeah, and so in other words, we don't need to
I don't need a resolution.
Yeah.
I just want to-
okay, fair enough.
handle your end.
All right, we're good.
Okay.
Where we at? Item 11. We're now entering a public hearing. So, if anyone has anything to say about it, just come step forward, be recognized at the time. Any motion to go into public hearing there? No.
You can.
Okay. Now it won't. This is the public hearing and adoption of LP ordinance number 17-29, servitude revocation, Richard Thompson on Wax Road. I don't know, who's it that? Miss Sandy?
Whose district is it?
That's in my district,
Is
You
it?
gonna look at it?
yes.
Okay.
And,
You wanna,
I've talked to the man, I've looked at the plat, what they want to do and everything, and I think it's a fine deal, so.
Good enough.
All right. Any comments from the audience?
Let me go ahead and read it real quick.
Well, any further comments from the council? Ms. Sandy, would you read by title?
Okay, this is proposed ordinance 17-29, an ordinance revoking a certain 15-foot servitude, utility servitude located in section 39T7S R3E Greensburg Land District, Livingston Parish, Louisiana, in favor of the landowner being more particularly described herein.
With the motion and a second, would you, I need a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Mack, second by Mr. Ard. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion and a second on the original item. Ms.
I'll
Sandy, would you
offer
call the roll? We already got it.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Item 12, amendment to subdivision ordinance concerning building lines with respect to define the size of the lot and setback. This is an introduction of an ordinance. Mr. Talbot?
Oh, this is,
Yeah.
we had an issue a while back where we had a 5-foot setback, and there were several people that had contacted us about the fact that houses were actually 7 foot apart at the eaves because of 5-foot setback. And I had introduced an ordinance to include the eaves and overhangs, and then realized because of, with respect to planning that had already been done, and some people had got subdivisions in the works that, part of the design process included figuring out what houses they were going to put on them, and also in realizing that if you place an ordinance that changes what the code, the international code is, but you have an architect sign off on it, then the architect's signature supersedes local ordinance in some aspect. So we felt we pulled that other ordinance we'd introduced and introduced this one, and basically it's going to accomplish the same thing. We're gonna go to a 6-foot setback on the smaller lots because the houses tend to be smaller, and as the lots get larger, we're gonna go to 7 foot is the purpose. The house will be bigger. You need a bigger area between the house. It's just a protection thing. It's just what you don't want to do is get in a situation that's existed in certain areas where your house catch on fire, and before you can put the row out, you got to tear a house down. And so I think the fire chiefs have kind of thought that this was a good idea to expand the area between the houses as a area of protection for homeowners. So basically all we're doing is everything was 5 foot. If it's 65 foot or less, it's going to be a 6-foot setback, and it's 66 foot or greater, it's going to be a 7-foot setback. So that's the introduction of the ordinance.
Any further discussion? Ms. Sandy, would you read by title,
Okay,
please?
this will be proposed ordinance 17-30. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 13, Planning and Development, Article 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 13-56, Building Lines of the Code of Ordinances in and for the Parish of Livingston. The public hearing will be at 6 p.m. on September 14th.
Any further discussion? Any discussion from the audience? Nothing further from the council. If not, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr.
I'll
Talbot.
second it.
Second by Mr. King. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item 13, dissolve Isabella Lakes Community Development District, and this is an introduction of the ordinance. Essentially, the property, I'll just expand on this, the property was acquired for Isabella Lakes by another investor, and we have to dissolve the original development district committee or development district in order for them to move forward. So this is the introduction to do such thing. Any discussion from the council? Any discussion from the audience? If not, I need a motion. Motion by Mr. Ard.
Second it.
Second by Mr. King. Ms. Sandy, read by title, please.
Yes, sir. This will be proposed ordinance 17-31. This is an ordinance dissolving Isabella Lakes Community Development District within the parish of Livingston, state of Louisiana, in compliance with provisions of Chapter 27B, Title 33 of the Louisiana Revised Statutes of 1950, as amended, Louisiana Revised Statute 33-9039.11 to 33-9039.37 inclusive. The public hearing will be at 6 p.m. on September the 14th.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, would you call the roll, Ms. Sandy?
Mr. Ard.
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Mr. Averett.
Yes.
Mr. Mack.
Yes.
If I understand it, item 14 has been tabled until the next meeting. We'll move to item 15. Livingston Parish Communications District Board reappointment. This was Mr. Lobel and Mr. Averett, but Mr. Lobel's absent, so Mr. Averett.
Yeah, Tab wanted to reappoint Ms. Gwen Blanchard.
Did Gwen?
Gwen.
Is that it? All right. Any discussion from the audience? Any discussion from the council? If not, I need a motion to appoint Ms. Gwen Blanchard to the Livingston Parish Communication District Board.
I'll make that.
Motion by Mr. Averett, second by, I'm sorry. Mr. Mack, you just caught me off guard. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Item 16, adopt a resolution to add Gun Road for consideration to the priority list. Mr. King.
Yes, I just asked for y'all to consider adding this to the priority overlay list because it's in the MPO. It should be, it was to be overlaid in 18 and the money wasn't funded through the governor's office. So I'd like for it to be added to the list for consideration. They can judge it and see where it falls out in case the money never becomes available. Only thing I need.
This is Dunn Road, a heavily traveled road.
Heavily traveled, and yes, I travel it every day.
That's a joke. Any further discussion? Yeah, we'll get back to that. Any discussion from the audience? If not, I need a motion to adopt the resolution. Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, now we'll go back to, I guess, 15. There was another person we need?
Yes.
All right, what's the name?
Mr. Melvin Wheat, the fire chief. I want to reappoint him to the board.
Melvin Wheat?
Yes.
All right, so we need a motion to
Communication board.
appoint Mr. Melvin Wheat to the
Now,
Communications
Communications.
District Board. Any discussion from the audience? Any further discussion from the council? I need a motion. Motion by Mr. Averett, second by Mr. Ard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Item 17, request for waiver intended for the allowance of permitting due to the restrictions of Livingston Parish Ordinance Number 17-22, Section 13-46-1, prohibitions and restrictions of use for mobile home manufactured homes to be placed in a named subdivision for the 10 on-site custom-built single-family homes. I don't have that sheet.
You got it.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's only one. It's only one.
It's on.
yeah, there's just one. So the waiver is for Mr. Ard's district is Deanna Dickinson. Address is 14701 Springfield Road, Walker, Louisiana. And what neighborhood is it? Irene Acres. So I'm assuming there was number of homes in the neighborhood.
They're all along there.
All right. So, motion by Mr. R. Second by Mr., I'm having a hard time remembering, Mr. Mack, sorry. Any discussion from the audience? Anything from the council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. This man, step forward.
Too late.
Tarrant Creek Farm, District 1, Mr. Ard's district. I really came prepared to speak on, had a prepared statement for agenda item number 14, but this place kind of in it, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm usually very prepared in my statement. I'm going to have to kind of ad-lib. So I appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wascom's not here, and he is the one who did the original authoring of this ordinance. And at the time that he brought it up, I stood before you guys and I expressed my request that it not be done. We have the tools for this in the ordinance that addressed agenda item number 14, okay? I had, so my question would be, in the application, I had quite a few things that I was going to pass out to you, but the application to place a mobile home on a piece of land, not in a trailer park, is taken care of on this multiple address application through the planning department. I went to the planning department on Monday, like I say, in preparation for agenda item number 14, and I went straight to the permit department and asked what I needed to do to place a mobile home on a piece of land, not in a trailer park. I was directed to the planning department. I spoke with Miss Diane and told her what I wanted to do, and she gave me this application, which is the first application, the next is the ascendant, descendant information, and the last is the affidavit. On this first application, it asks, I gotta put my glasses on. It asks you, is the property in a subdivision? If so, what is the name of the subdivision? So and then the next is, if the property is in a subdivision, have you checked to see if you meet the subdivision restrictions? So we don't need to get into a discussion of whether there's trailers in there or not. If it is a named recorded subdivision, there are recorded restrictions within your courthouse. And if it prohibits against mobile homes, then you would not be able to grant this permit. So it can take care, the issuing of that 17-22 just complicates the whole issue for people. It is very complicated and confusing. That mobile home should be treated the same as the mobile home that was on agenda item number 14. It needs to meet all of the same requirements. And so it's in a named subdivision. I'm assuming it has recorded restrictions. If those restrictions do say we prohibit against mobile homes, then you would not be allowed to give that permit. Doesn't matter whether there's others in there or not. Restrictions are valid if they are recorded, and unless there is an amendment or a court order stating that they are no longer valid or they have been amended, they are valid. We don't have the right to look around and judge their validity. A court has that right.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite finished.
Okay.
And again, I would be more prepared, but I wasn't going to address this one because I didn't understand if there was even any on there. That agenda item being on there all the time and it gives no information. I had called before and they said, well, we don't have any items. We have no request. That's just a standard item that will stay on the agenda. So again, that's even more complicated and confusing to the public. I came here thinking, well, we're not going to have any waiver request for that. So you see what I'm saying? We have, in this day and time, y'all get a bad rap for creating all these laws and everything. We certainly don't need to create and adopt unnecessary and excessive laws that complicate a problem. We have a law in 14-12, I'm pretty sure that's the number, that does take care of it, the one that applies to multiple address application. We have a law, an ordinance already on the book that can suffice in this manner. There's no need to adopt another law that then confuses it. Now, the only thing that may be different in this situation, which again, I don't know because I didn't do any research and I didn't know that this was going to be a request, but is this the only structure on that piece of property? You know, is there another structure already? Are they asking to put a mobile home on a piece of property in Irene Acres that already has a structure or doesn't? If it doesn't have a structure, then maybe we can address the ordinance that Mr. Wascom authored by talking about structures. Forget about a mobile home. Mobile home can be taken care of in the ordinance that is already adopted on the books. We can address multiple structures on one piece of property in a named subdivision. So there again, I appreciate y'all's patience with me because I don't like to ramble and I seem disjointed myself talking about it. But I think there's two issues with this agenda item. First of all, it shouldn't be a standing item. And if it is going to be a standing item, there needs to be a way that those of us who do keep up with the agenda know whether or not there are requests on the books that it should name, just like agenda item 14.
Sometimes people come at the last minute and want to request, they buy a trailer and it's 5 days from the meeting or 4 days from the meeting, and so we will allow them to add it so they don't have to wait another 2 weeks to get on the agenda.
And I understand your consideration of them, but you should be considerate of the property owners adjoining that property. They have a right
But that's what the
for
ordinance
notice.
is completely about. We're trying to be ultimately considerate to them for the ordinance in itself. We're trying to keep.
Yes, sir. I'm talking about public notice.
Well,
If you put them on the agenda without the proper notice to the public, then we don't, we should be able to come here. Suppose I live next door to that particular piece of property. I need to have notice. Those people don't have notice because it's just a standard thing. And unlike agenda item 14, where you name the specific road and you name the specific constituent, those of us who keep up with it, and every constituent should get a copy of this agenda. We should all be informed and know what's going on up here every 2 weeks.
so we should make those people wait an extra 2 weeks if they happen to want it.
I think
I think you have to in order to be considerate to the public that is concerned, that would be affected by that property as well. So,
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Couple things going on. In theory, everything you said is accurate. In the fact that, there are subdivision restrictions out there that exist. I live in Hunstock Hills. There are a couple vacant lots in our subdivision, and there were subdivision restrictions filed at the time. However, without an active homeowners association to enforce certain restrictions, once the covenants are violated, they're no longer valid. And I think it's been proven in court numerous times that once subdivision covenants are violated at one point in time, then they all become null and void. So secondly, permitting does not enforce subdivision restrictions. Whether they should or not is another matter. Under the current way this parish operates, permitting does not enforce subdivision restrictions. Therefore, if there's a lot that exists, whether it's in a subdivision or outside a subdivision, a named, quote, subdivision, everything is some subdivision of some original tract. So that's kind of where our problem existed with the ordinance that we made. However, if with all we're doing is adding another layer, we're not giving people a waiver of the rules that exist with respect to whether they can put a trailer. All these waivers we granted, they meet the requirements of putting a trailer on a piece of property in Livingston Parish. The only thing we're doing is taking a second look as to whether they violate the named subdivision that was designed for stick-built homes, is what it amounts to. And so we're offering another layer of protection is all we're doing. And granted, it might not have been the best ordinance in the world, and there are definitely some flaws in the way it's written, in the fact that every 2 weeks, we've got to address waivers. But until we figure out a way to fix it, we can't offer for protection for people who live in subdivisions that were designed for stick-built homes. You know what I'm talking about? So given that situation, that's why the subdivision's on the books. If you fill out that request at permitting, you follow me? And you said, yes, it's a subdivision, and yes, no, I haven't checked, that is irrelevant in respect to whether you're gonna get a permit or not to put that trailer there. They ask the questions, but they don't research whether the restrictions allow it or not, because it's something they don't enforce. So maybe we need to look at a different ordinance. Maybe we need to look at making them enforce restrictions. Maybe we need to look at zoning. But as it exists right now, the only way to offer people protection in a subdivision designed for stick-built homes is to make everybody who gets a trailer permit come here and get a waiver before this council to determine. We tried to say once we waive the subdivision, then permitting could then issue the permit. That was not successful. So every time a trailer permit comes here, is issued in this parish, it comes before this council to determine if it's being built if it's being put in an area that was designed for trailers or I guess that's not the correct term, was not designed for stick-built homes. That's the deal. So for example, if right now a vacant lot in Huntstock Hills, somebody tried to put a trailer in, it would come before this council and we would not grant the waiver.
No.
But is there a homeowners association in, or?
Not right now.
Well, see, well, then that's
they
the
talked
whole
about
idea.
reactivating it. So
May I speak in rebuttal to that?
sure, but I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you of instances where once the violations are done, I mean, it's over with.
Ms. Creekbaum, you can speak to it, but we're not going to have a whole bunch of back and forth. So
Yes, sir, and I agree, I made my statement.
you did.
As unprepared as I was, and you allowed your council member to...
And I'm allowing you to speak. So go
To
ahead.
kind of rebut, so I
ahead.
would like the same. With all due respect, you are saying on one hand, we asked the question, are you in a subdivision and are there restrictions or does it prohibit? I'd have to read it, I don't have it in front of me, that restrict you from putting this mobile home there. And then you say, you take it upon the owner to be honest. And if he says no, then we just don't even look any further. The last page of the packet that I was going to pass out to you is an affidavit signed by the property owner that must be notarized. He must answer everything truthfully. If he doesn't, if he is proven untruthful, that is fraud. So you can't ask them the question and make them sign an affidavit and not further check. I do believe there is a flaw in the system. If you ask them that question, are you in a subdivision, a named subdivision, and does that subdivision prohibit or restrict you from placing a mobile home there, it is your duty then to research that further. A simple red flag system with your courthouse will pull up Irene Acres. And here's the other thing I'm going to say very respectfully. You cannot say on one hand that you know about those restrictions and we're not going to enforce them. You cannot say we do not have the authority to enforce the restrictions and then turn right around on the other hand and say that you have the authority to decide whether they're valid or not, because there's other trailers there. I can tell you for a fact, Mr. Talbert, and again, I'm trying to be very respectful, I don't mean anything, but I know for a fact that every recorded restriction which a developer puts in, or just somebody who's developing a minor subdivision, that is how he decides his intent for that subdivision is with restrictions. He records those in your courthouse. Those restrictions remain valid until they are proven invalid in a court of law. That is a fact. Not until people look around and say, well, you know, he's got a trailer over there and he's got a garage on the side and it's supposed to be front loaded, so they're all broke, so they're not need. You can't say that. You don't have the authority. You don't have the authority to enforce them, and you certainly don't have the authority to decide whether they're valid. If they're in your courthouse, which is a simple check, and they are recorded, and they have not been amended or proven invalid by a court-recorded document, they are valid. They are valid. So the easy fix is to address mobile homes with the ordinance that is already there. You have the tools to prevent that already with a law. If there is, then I think Mr. Harris talked earlier in the
Ms.
here
Crickbaum,
about. I'm just about finished. I'll say the last thing.
Okay, go ahead.
He talked earlier about the problem he was having was people wanting to subdivide their lot or put a second structure on the lot, and that was a concern. So that's why I say maybe the ordinance that Mr. Wascom authored could be changed. Don't address mobile homes, structures, a second structure, or subdividing of a property in a named established subdivision that prohibits that. Then that way, you're not, all you've done is step back into the mobile home waiver business with which the council before you fought many long hours to get out of it. So again, I thank you for your patience.
Okay, Mr. Cassidy, is that correct what she said? Or do you?
Partially. At first, whenever a subdivision is built and they record restrictions, whether it be for the subdivision itself or for the HOA, those restrictions are recorded and they are valid and enforceable at that point. They're enforceable by the homeowners association. The HOA is the proper party to bring enforcement and to bring a suit to stop something from happening or to prohibit something from happening. If the HOA does not enforce a visible violation within 2 years, that ordinance or that violation and that rule is no longer considered enforceable. It's considered abandoned. And so if there's a rule in the homeowners association agreement and restrictive covenants that states there are no mobile homes allowed in XYZ neighborhood, and then somebody right in the middle of the lot where everybody can see it puts a mobile home, and for 2 years the HOA does not enforce that restriction upon that landowner, that restriction is considered abandoned for the entire HOA.
By a court of law.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question is,
Well, no, not by a court of law. In other words, if there's a neighborhood and there's 2 empty lots, and they say no mobile homes can be built in this subdivision, that's a restrictive covenant of XYZ neighborhood, and then I go in and I put a mobile home on my lot, and 2 years goes by and the HOA does not enforce it against me and tell me to move my mobile home, and then 6 months later, Mr. Grillinghouse comes along and puts a trailer in the lot next to him, and then the HOA tells him you have to move your lot. He can say, no, I don't. And the HOA will be the party to try to sue Mr. Grillinghouse to move his trailer. He's going to win. He's going to say 2 years went by and you didn't enforce it.
okay, so the reason this ordinance came about is because if you have a subdivision with restrictions and no HOA,
Right.
and somebody violates the original restriction, and we're going to assume they're still valid at this point in time, that they hadn't time lapsed or whatever, because some restrictions have a time period on them and then they go away. So then the situation becomes the individuals who surround that have to then sue to have their restrictions enforced. Am I correct in assuming that's the way it's done?
If there's an HOA, the HOA would normally do it.
But if there is no HOA, this situation arose from an older subdivision that didn't have any trailers in. Someone moved a trailer in. The people that lived around them did not have the means to litigate to solve the problem. So now they have a trailer in their subdivision with no recourse to resolve. So this was to prevent that from happening in the future, where an individual didn't have the means or no homeowners association existed. Before somebody could move in a trailer into a subdivision that was obviously not designed to have that trailer there, we created this ordinance so that now everybody has to come before us. It was just a means of protecting subdivisions that didn't have HOAs that became older, Because what you end up with is once you put the first trailer in there, then you devalue the properties, and then you begin the deterioration of what was a nice subdivision, and we've seen it over and over again. So that the purpose is not to grant waivers for trailers. The purpose of this ordinance is to prevent people who don't have a homeowners association or the financial means to protect what was their covenants at one point in time. That was the whole purpose of it. It wasn't in an effort to create waivers to allow additional trailers within the parish. It's solely for the purpose of protecting subdivisions without HOAs or without means to provide litigation against the people who choose to violate the existing homeowners or the existing, what's the word?
Ordinance?
Not ordinance, the restrictions that exist at that point in time. So I think that the ordinance probably could have some improvements made to it, but at this point in time, it's the best mechanism we have to protect certain individuals, and that's the reason it exists. And even though they answer those questions truthfully, yes, there's restrictions. You heard the attorney say the only person that can enforce those is a homeowners association.
That's not true. I don't have a homeowners association.
Can I say something?
Each person owns a deed, you have
Yes.
the right to enforce
Yeah,
the
well,
restriction.
they can, but they'd have to sue.
You know, John called me when he was trying to come up with this ordinance to, basically, what Gary said was, prevent mobile homes and the depreciating the value in the subdivisions that were what we called higher-end subdivisions. And to the best of my knowledge, this ordinance has met that intent. I think that where mobile homes should be placed, we're allowing them to be placed there. And where they shouldn't be placed, we're preventing them from being placed there. To me, it might not be worded perfectly. I have not talked to one individual that truly was denied the right to put a mobile home where a mobile home should be, and vice versa. I know of no complaints where a mobile home was placed in a subdivision where it shouldn't be. Therefore, I think we should just go ahead and vote and move forward.
Already did.
I think we got it going on.
Anything further from the audience? Anything further from the council? I've posed this question. I'm going to have the last word on this. I pose this question to just about everyone who calls me on any subject. And I'll go, let me ask you how you feel about this. And I have not had one person say that they dislike this ordinance. You know, they said they understand it. Even the ones who call wanting the waiver in a panic, they'll say, well, I understand what you're trying to do, and we agree with that. So, with that being said, I need a motion.
You already got it a while ago.
Got it.
Sorry.
All right, Ms. Sandy, would you call the vote?
I think we did.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to go to the addendums. Right here. A2. Rescind LP number 17-27, quitclaim servitude revocation adopted on July 27th, 2017 at the regular meeting of the Livingston Parish Council, introduction of the ordinance. Ms. Sandy, would you?
This will be proposed ordinance 17-32. This is an ordinance rescinding ordinance 17-27 of the Parish of Livingston and adopted on July 27, 2017 concerning the revocation of a certain 40-foot servitude of access and a certain 60-foot servitude of access located in section 41T8S R3E Greensburg Land District. The public hearing will be at 6 p.m. on September the 14th.
Any discussion from the audience? Any further discussion from the council? If not, I need a motion. Motion by Mr. Averett, second by Mr. Ard. Ms. Sandy, would you call the vote?
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yeah.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
All right, at this time, I'm going to request that we go into executive session to discuss an issue that I guess we can't discuss publicly, so if I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Mr. Averett, second by Mr. Ard. Ms. Sandy, would you call the vote?
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Garlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Mr. Averett?
Yes.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I need everyone who's not directly involved with the issue at hand to exit the room. Any witnesses or anybody who's going to speak on the